My name is Olivia Carter, and I'm 29 years old. If someone had told me 5 years ago that I'd be sitting in my beat-up Honda Civic outside my childhood home on Christmas Eve, crying into my hands while snow fell on the windshield, I would have laughed. Back then, I still believed that family meant something. Back then, I still thought love was unconditional. But here I am, parked across the street from 847 Maple Drive in Cleveland, Ohio, watching the warm yellow light spill from the windows of what used to be my home. The same house where I learned to ride a bike in the driveway, where I spent countless nights doing homework at the kitchen table, where I used to feel safe. The house looks exactly the same from the outside. White siding, black shutters, the big oak tree in the front yard that Dad always threatened to cut down but never did. Mom's Christmas wreath hangs on the front door, the same one she's used for the past 15 years. Everything looks normal, peaceful even, but appearances can be so deceiving. I can see shadows moving behind the curtains. My family is in there. Mom, Dad, and Jessica with her husband David and their 2 kids. They're probably sitting around the fireplace, sipping hot chocolate, maybe playing board games. The picture-perfect family Christmas I used to be part of, until I wasn't. Let me back up and explain how I got here, because this story doesn't start today. It starts about 3 years ago, when everything began to change. I grew up thinking I had a normal family. Sure, we weren't rich. Dad worked at the steel plant for 30 years, and Mom cleaned houses to make ends meet. But we were happy, or at least, I thought we were. Jessica, who's 5 years older than me, was always the golden child. She was prettier, smarter, more popular. She went to college on a scholarship and graduated with honors. I was proud of her, honestly. I looked up to my big sister. When Jessica married David Thornton 3 years ago, everything shifted. David comes from old money. His family owns a chain of luxury car dealerships across Ohio, the kind of money that changes everything. Suddenly, Jessica wasn't just my successful older sister anymore. She was Mrs. David Thornton, living in a mansion in the suburbs, driving a BMW, wearing clothes that cost more than I made in a month. And suddenly, I became less. It wasn't immediate. At first, my parents were just excited about the wedding, about having a son-in-law who could provide well for Jessica. They talked about David's family's business, about the beautiful house he bought for Jessica, about their plans to have children. I was happy for her too, really. Jessica deserved good things. But then the comparison started. You know, Olivia, Jessica's doing so well with David. When are you going to find someone serious? Mom would say over dinner. Your sister's husband is taking her to Europe for their anniversary. Such a generous man, Dad would add, looking at me like I should be taking notes. It stung, but I tried to brush it off. I was working at a local marketing firm, making decent money, living in a small apartment downtown. I wasn't rich, but I was independent. I thought that counted for something. I was wrong. The real turning point came 18 months ago. I was laid off from my job when the company downsized. I had some savings, but not enough to cover rent and expenses while I job hunted. I swallowed my pride and asked if I could move back home temporarily, just until I got back on my feet. Of course, sweetie, Mom had said on the phone. This is your home. But when I actually moved back in, I realized how much had changed. My old bedroom had been converted into what Mom called her craft room. I was given the basement, a cold, damp space that smelled like mildew no matter how much I tried to air it out. Mom said it was just temporary and that I could spruce it up however I wanted. Meanwhile, Jessica's old room remained a shrine. Mom had kept it exactly as it was when Jessica left for college, complete with her high school trophies and cheerleading ribbons. For when Jessica and the kids visit, Mom explained, I should have seen the writing on the wall then, but I was desperate and grateful to have a roof over my head. I told myself it was just until I found a job. I could handle a few months in the basement. Those few months turned into a year and a half. Finding work was harder than I expected. The marketing field was competitive, and I was up against people with more experience or better connections. I took temporary jobs, retail during the holidays, restaurant work, anything to contribute to household expenses. I gave Mom and Dad money whenever I could, even when it meant I had nothing left for myself. But nothing I did was enough. Nothing I did mattered. The subtle digs became more frequent. When Jessica would call, Mom would put her on speaker so the whole house could hear about Jessica's latest vacation, her new furniture, her charity work. Jessica's doing so well became Mom's favorite refrain. She's really made something of herself. The implication was clear. I hadn't. Dad started treating me like a child again, giving me a curfew, asking where I was going when I left the house. My house, my rules, he'd say when I protested. But when Jessica and her family visited, which happened more and more frequently, I was expected to give up the basement too. I'd have to sleep on the living room couch, surrounded by my belongings stuffed into garbage bags. It's just easier this way, Mom would say. David's not used to this kind of living situation, as if I was some kind of burden, some embarrassment they had to hide. The worst part was how they acted when Jessica's family was around. Suddenly, I became invisible. Conversations would stop when I entered the room. Plans were made around me, not with me. At family dinners, I felt like an outsider looking in, watching my parents dote on Jessica's children while barely acknowledging my presence. I started spending more and more time out of the house, just to avoid the awkwardness. I'd go to the library, to coffee shops, anywhere but home. Home didn't feel like home anymore. 6 months ago, I finally got a steady job at a small nonprofit that helps people with disabilities find employment. It doesn't pay much, but it's meaningful work, and I'm good at it. I started saving money again, making plans to move out. I thought maybe if I could just get my own place again, things with my family could go back to normal. But by then, something fundamental had broken. The final straw came 2 weeks ago. I was in the kitchen making dinner when Jessica called, crying. She and David had gotten into a fight about something. I never found out what, and she needed to come home for a few days to think things through. Within an hour, Mom was on the phone with a storage unit company, arranging to put my belongings somewhere else. Just temporarily, she assured me. Just while Jessica needs some space to work things out. What about me? I asked. Where am I supposed to go? Mom looked genuinely surprised by the question. Oh, you'll figure something out, honey. You're resourceful. Resourceful. That's what I was now. Not their daughter who needed support during a difficult time, but someone who was resourceful enough to figure it out on her own. I ended up staying with my friend Marcus from work, sleeping on his couch. It was humiliating. Here I was, almost 30 years old, bouncing between couches because my own family had priorities that didn't include me. Jessica's marriage problems resolved themselves within 3 days. She went back to David, back to her mansion, back to her perfect life, but my belongings stayed in storage. It's just more convenient this way, Mom explained, and the craft room is so much more functional now. That's when I knew. I wasn't just temporarily displaced. I had been permanently erased. Today is Christmas Eve. I had hoped, stupidly, naively hoped, that maybe the holidays would bring some magic, some reminder of what we used to be as a family. So I came here tonight, to the house where I grew up, to try one more time. I knocked on the front door 20 minutes ago. Mom answered, and for just a moment, her face lit up. Olivia. What a surprise! But then I saw her expression change as she glanced over her shoulder into the house, where I could hear Jessica's children laughing, and David's voice talking to Dad about golf. Mom stepped outside and closed the door behind her. This really isn't a good time, she said softly, wrapping her cardigan tighter around herself. Jessica's family is here, and you know how the kids get with too many people around. Too many people. As if I were a stranger, not their aunt. Mom, it's Christmas Eve, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I just wanted to see everyone. I miss you all so much. She looked uncomfortable, shifting her weight from foot to foot. The snow was getting heavier, and I could see my breath in the cold air. I know, honey, and we miss you too, but things are just complicated right now. Maybe we could grab coffee sometime next week. After the holidays, after the family time was over, after I wasn't needed anymore. I brought presents, I said desperately, gesturing to the small bag in my hands. For the kids, and I made that cranberry bread you like. Mom's face softened for just a moment, and I thought maybe she would change her mind. But then I heard Jessica's voice from inside calling, Mom, who's at the door? David's asking about dessert. Mom's expression hardened again. Olivia, you have to understand. This is hard for all of us, but you're an adult now. You need to make your own life, your own family. You can't keep depending on us to... She trailed off, but I heard the words she didn't say. You can't keep depending on us to take care of you. You can't keep being a burden. There's no home for you here anymore, she said finally, her voice quiet but firm. I'm sorry, but that's just how it is, And then she went back inside, leaving me standing on the porch where I used to play as a little girl, holding a bag of Christmas presents that no one wanted. That was 20 minutes ago. Now I'm sitting in my car, trying to process what just happened. My own mother just told me I don't have a home anymore. My own family just erased me from Christmas. But as I sit here, feeling more alone than I've ever felt in my life, I can feel something in my coat pocket, something I've been carrying around for weeks without really thinking about it. Keys. Old brass keys on a simple ring. My grandfather Henry's keys. Grandpa Henry was my mom's father, and he died 2 months ago at the age of 87. I was the only one who regularly visited him in the nursing home during his final years. Jessica was always too busy, and Mom and Dad found excuses not to go. "It's too depressing," Mom would say. "He doesn't even remember us half the time." But I went every Sunday. We'd play checkers, and I'd tell him about my week, and he'd tell me stories about the old days. Even when his mind started to fade, he always remembered me, always smiled when I walked in. 3 weeks after the funeral, his lawyer called me. Grandpa Henry had left me something in his will. Not money, there wasn't much of that, but something else, a set of keys and an address. The lawyer handed me an envelope with my name written on it in Grandpa Henry's shaky handwriting. Inside were these keys and a note that said, "For Olivia, the strong one. Use these when you're ready to build your own home." I had no idea what they were for. The address was for a place I'd never heard of, somewhere outside Cleveland. I kept meaning to drive out there and check it out, but with everything that's been happening, I never got around to it. Until now. I pull the keys out of my pocket and look at them in the dim light from the street lamp. They're old, probably from the 1950s or 60s, worn smooth from years of use. There are 3 of them, 2 that look like house keys and 1 smaller one, maybe for a mailbox or a shed. I look back at the house one more time. The warm light is still glowing in the windows. My family is still in there, celebrating Christmas without me. They've made their choice. Now it's time for me to make mine. I start the car and pull out my phone, typing the address into my GPS. It's about 45 minutes outside the city, in a small town called Millfield that I've never heard of. According to the map, it's mostly rural, with a lot of farmland and old houses scattered throughout the countryside. As I pull away from Maple Drive, I don't look back. I can't. If I do, I might lose my nerve and end up sitting here all night, waiting for someone to change their mind and invite me in. But that's not going to happen. I know that now. The snow is coming down heavier as I drive through the city and onto the highway. Christmas songs play softly on the radio, and I turn them off. I need silence right now. I need to think. What am I doing? Driving to some mystery address my dead grandfather left me, in the middle of a snowstorm on Christmas Eve. This is either the bravest thing I've ever done, or the most foolish. Maybe both. But as the city lights fade behind me, and I head into the darkness of the Ohio countryside, I feel something I haven't felt in a long time. Hope. Whatever those keys open, whatever Grandpa Henry left me, it's mine. Something that belongs to me and me alone. Something that can't be taken away or given to Jessica, because it's more convenient. For the first time in years, I'm driving toward something instead of running away from something, and that makes all the difference. The drive to Millfield takes me through winding country roads I've never seen before, even though I've lived in Ohio my entire life. The snow is falling steadier now, coating the bare branches of oak and maple trees that line the highway, like ghostly fingers reaching toward the dark sky. My headlights cut through the darkness, illuminating nothing but empty road ahead. I've been driving for 30 minutes when my phone loses signal. No GPS, no way to call for help if something goes wrong. Just me, my car, and a set of mysterious keys leading me to God knows where. 6 months ago, this would have terrified me. Tonight, it feels like freedom. The further I get from Cleveland, the more the landscape changes. Suburban developments give way to farmland, then to rolling hills dotted with old barns and farmhouses. Some have lights in the windows, warm and inviting, while others sit dark and abandoned. I wonder about the families in those lit-up houses. Are they gathered around dinner tables, playing games, arguing about politics? Are they the kind of families who would never dream of telling their daughter there's no home for her anymore? I shake my head, trying to push away the bitter thoughts. That part of my life is over. Whatever lies ahead has to be better than what I'm leaving behind. The GPS had said to take Highway 82 to County Road 15, then look for Willow Creek Lane. I almost missed the turn. There's no street sign, just a weathered wooden post with Willow T. Key carved into it, half hidden by overgrown weeds. I slow down and make the turn onto a narrow gravel road that seems to disappear into the darkness ahead. My Honda bumps and rattles over the uneven surface. Tree branches scrape against the windows, and I have to resist the urge to turn around. This doesn't look like it leads anywhere good. But something keeps me moving forward. Maybe it's desperation, maybe it's curiosity, or maybe it's just that I have nowhere else to go. After what feels like miles but is probably only a few minutes, I see a mailbox ahead on the right side of the road. My headlights illuminate the numbers painted on the side. 847. The same numbers as my childhood home address. That can't be a coincidence. I pull into what looks like a driveway, though it's more like a dirt path overgrown with weeds. My headlights sweep across an old wooden fence, a gate hanging askew on rusty hinges, and beyond that, a house. I park and turn off the engine, sitting in the sudden silence for a moment. Through the windshield, I can make out the shape of a small farmhouse, maybe built in the 1940s or 50s. It's hard to see details in the darkness, but it looks like it might be white or cream-colored, with a covered front porch and dormer windows on the second floor. There's a large tree in the front yard, an oak, I think, and what looks like an old barn or garage off to one side. The house is completely dark. No lights in any of the windows. No signs of life. It looks like it's been empty for a long time. I pull out my phone, hoping maybe I caught a signal, but there's nothing. I'm completely cut off from the world out here. The smart thing would be to turn around and drive back to town, find a hotel, and come back in the morning when I can actually see what I'm dealing with. But I've spent so many nights in hotel rooms, on couches, in temporary situations. I'm tired of being temporary. I'm tired of waiting for permission to exist in someone else's space. I grab a flashlight from my glove compartment and get out of the car. The cold hits me immediately. It's colder out here than it was in the city, and the wind cuts through my coat like a knife. The snow crunches under my boots as I walk toward the house, the flashlight beam dancing ahead of me. The front porch is covered with dead leaves that have blown in over the months or years since anyone last swept them. The porch swing is still there, hanging from chains that creak softly in the wind. There are 2 windows flanking the front door, both covered with faded curtains from the inside. I climb the 3 wooden steps, testing each one to make sure it will hold my weight. They're solid, though they groan under my feet. At the front door, I stop and take a deep breath. This is it. Whatever my grandfather left me, whatever this place is, I'm about to find out. I pull out the keys and examine them in the flashlight beam. One of the larger ones looks like it might fit the front door. My hands are shaking, from cold or nerves. I'm not sure which, but I manage to slide the key into the lock. It turns easily, as if it's been waiting for me. The door swings open with a soft creak, and I step into darkness. The air inside is stale and cold, but not musty like I expected. It smells like old wood and something else. Lavender, maybe. I shine my flashlight around, looking for a light switch. The beam illuminates a small entryway with hardwood floors and wallpaper that looks like it's from several decades ago. Tiny blue flowers on a cream background. There's a coat closet to my right, and an archway ahead that seems to lead to a living room. I find a light switch and flip it, not really expecting anything to happen, but the lights come on. I blink in surprise. Electricity means someone's been paying the bills. But who? The living room is small but cozy, with hardwood floors and built-in bookshelves along one wall. There's an old sofa covered with a faded floral slipcover, a coffee table with water stains on the wood, and a stone fireplace that looks like it actually works. The walls are painted a soft yellow that might have been cheerful once but now looks tired. But here's what strikes me most. It's clean. Dusty, yes, but not abandoned. Someone has been taking care of this place. I walk through the living room into what turns out to be a small kitchen. It's definitely from the 1950s. Original cabinets painted mint green, a white porcelain sink, linoleum floors with a checkered pattern. There's an old refrigerator that's humming quietly, and when I open it, the light comes on. It's empty except for a box of baking soda, but it's clean and running. On the kitchen counter, I find an envelope with my name on it. My heart starts beating faster as I tear it open. Inside is a letter in my grandfather's handwriting, dated just 2 weeks before he died. My dear Olivia, it begins, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and you've found your way to the little house on Willow Creek Lane. I've been saving this place for you, though I never told anyone about it, not even your grandmother when she was alive. I bought this house 43 years ago when your grandmother and I were having troubles. We never ended up needing it. We worked things out and stayed together until she passed, but I held on to it anyway. Something told me it would be important someday. I've been watching what's been happening with your family, Olivia. I see how they treat you, how they make you feel like you don't matter. It breaks my heart because you matter more than any of them realize. You're the only one who visited me when I was sick. You're the only one who listened to my stories and treated me like I was still a person worth knowing. This house is yours now, completely and legally yours. I've had a lawyer handling all the paperwork. His name is Robert Martinez, and his card is in the kitchen drawer by the stove. The utilities are set up in your name, and there's enough money in an account to cover expenses for the next 2 years. After that, you'll need to figure it out yourself, but I have faith in you. The house needs work. I haven't been able to get out here much in recent years, but it's solid. Good bones, as your grandmother used to say. There's a garden in the back that just needs someone to love it again, and the barn has tools and supplies you might need. I know this isn't much compared to what some people inherit, but it's yours. No one can take it away from you. No one can tell you there's no room for you here. This is your home now, if you want it to be. Be strong, my dear girl. Build the life you deserve. All my love, Grandpa Henry. P.S. Check the cellar. I left you a few more things that might come in handy. I have to sit down. I actually have to pull out one of the kitchen chairs and sit because my legs won't hold me up anymore. I own this house. This entire house is mine. For the first time in 3 years, I have a place where I belong, where no one can tell me I'm temporary, where no one can move my things to storage, where no one can make me feel like I'm in the way. I read the letter 3 more times before it really sinks in. Then I start crying. Not the bitter, angry tears I shed in the car outside my parents' house, but tears of relief and gratitude, and something else I can't quite name. Hope, maybe. Pure, overwhelming hope. I wipe my eyes and start exploring the rest of the house. There's a small bathroom off the kitchen with a clawfoot tub and pedestal sink. The faucets are old, but they work, and hot water comes out when I turn the handle. Upstairs, there are 2 bedrooms, one larger one with windows facing the front of the house, and a smaller one that looks out over what must be the backyard. Both have slanted ceilings and dormer windows, and both are completely empty except for built-in closets. Back downstairs, I find the cellar door in the kitchen. The steps are wooden and steep, but they feel solid under my feet. The cellar is bigger than I expected, with stone walls and a dirt floor. There are shelves along the walls holding glass canning jars, and in the corner, I find what Grandpa Henry mentioned in his letter, a trunk, an old steamer trunk with brass corners and leather straps. Inside, I find quilts, beautiful, handmade quilts in patterns I don't recognize. There are also some basic household items, dishes, silverware, a few pots and pans, some linens. At the bottom of the trunk, wrapped in tissue paper, I find photograph albums. I carry one of the albums upstairs and sit in the living room, turning on every lamp I can find. The pictures are mostly black and white, dating back to what looks like the 1940s and 50s. I see my grandfather as a young man, impossibly handsome in his military uniform. There are photos of him and my grandmother when they were newlyweds. Pictures of this very house when it was new and everything was fresh and bright. But the pictures that make me catch my breath are the ones from later. Color photos from the 1960s and 70s. My grandmother in the kitchen, laughing at something off camera. My grandfather working in the garden, dirt on his hands and pride on his face. Photos of family gatherings on the front porch, with people I don't recognize but who are clearly relatives. This house was loved once. It was home to people who cared about each other, who built something together, and now it's mine. I close the album and look around the living room. It's nearly midnight now, officially Christmas Day. I should be exhausted, but I feel more awake than I have in months. I want to see everything, to understand what I've inherited, to start planning what comes next. But first, I need to deal with practical matters. I go back to my car and bring in the overnight bag I always keep in the trunk, a habit I developed during my months of couch surfing. I also grab the Christmas presents I never got to give and the cranberry bread I made for my mother. In the kitchen, I cut myself a slice of the bread and eat it standing at the counter. It tastes like Christmas morning should taste, sweet and tart and full of warmth. I save the rest for breakfast. Upstairs, I spread one of my grandfather's quilts on the floor of the larger bedroom and use my coat as a pillow. It's not comfortable, but it's mine. The room is cold, but I'm warmer than I've been in months. Outside, the wind is picking up, rattling the old windows. But inside, I feel safe, protected, home. I lie there in the darkness, listening to the sounds of the old house settling around me, Somewhere in the distance, I can hear what might be an owl calling. The snow continues to fall past the windows, but it doesn't feel threatening anymore. It feels like a blanket being pulled over the world, keeping everything quiet and peaceful. Tomorrow, I'll start figuring out what comes next. I'll call the lawyer my grandfather mentioned. I'll explore the property in daylight. I'll make lists of what needs to be fixed and what I can afford to fix it with. I'll start building the life he told me I deserve. But tonight, for the first time in longer than I can remember, I'm exactly where I belong. My last thought before I drift off to sleep is a memory from childhood, sitting on my grandfather's lap while he read me stories, his voice deep and gentle, his arms strong around me. "You're going to do great things someday, Olivia," he used to tell me. "You just wait and see." He was right. I just never imagined those great things would start with a set of old keys and a house that time forgot. But as I fall asleep in my own home, surrounded by my grandfather's love and protection even though he's gone, I realize that sometimes the best gifts come wrapped in the most unexpected packages, and sometimes, when one door closes, another one opens. Literally. I wake up to sunlight streaming through the dormer windows and the sound of birds singing outside. For a moment, I'm disoriented. The ceiling above me has exposed wooden beams I don't recognize, and the light is coming from the wrong direction. Then it all comes rushing back. The keys, the drive, the house, my grandfather's letter. I'm home. Actually, home. I sit up on the quilt, my back aching from sleeping on the hardwood floor, but I don't care. Through the front-facing windows, I can see the world my grandfather left me, and it's beautiful. The snow stopped sometime during the night, leaving everything covered in a pristine white blanket. The oak tree in the front yard is magnificent, its bare branches etched against a bright blue sky like something from a Christmas card. But more than that, I can see the property clearly for the first time. The house sits on what looks like at least 2 acres of land, maybe more. There's the old barn I glimpsed last night, painted red but faded with age. Beyond that, I can make out what might be a vegetable garden buried under the snow, and there are fruit trees scattered throughout the yard. Apple trees, I think. Maybe some cherry trees, too. This isn't just a house. It's a homestead. I get up and stretch, then head downstairs to the kitchen. The morning light reveals details I missed in the darkness. The mint green cabinets are original but in good condition. The countertops are worn formica but clean. There's a small breakfast nook by the window with built-in benches and a table, perfect for morning coffee and watching the sunrise. I find instant coffee in one of the cabinets, bless you, Grandpa Henry, and figure out how to work the old percolator on the stove. While the coffee brews, I explore the kitchen drawers and find the business card my grandfather mentioned. Robert Martinez, attorney at law, with an address in a town called Cedar Falls, about 20 minutes away. I also find something else in the drawer, a small notebook with house notes written on the cover in my grandfather's handwriting. I flip through it, and my heart swells with gratitude and amazement. He's documented everything. When the roof was last repaired, 2 years ago. When the furnace was serviced, last fall. Which windows need weather stripping. Where the main water shutoff is located. It's like he was preparing the house for me, making sure I'd have everything I needed to take care of it. The last entry is dated just 3 weeks before he died. Olivia will need a truck for this place. Too much to haul in that little Honda. Check with Jim Morrison at the Ford dealership. He owes me a favor. Even in his final weeks, he was thinking about what I would need. I pour myself a cup of coffee and sit in the breakfast nook, looking out at my backyard. The view is incredible. Rolling hills covered in snow. A small creek I can just barely make out winding through the trees in the distance. And beyond that, farmland stretching to the horizon. It's so quiet I can actually hear the silence, broken only by the occasional bird call or the distant sound of a truck on the main road. This is what peace feels like. My phone suddenly chirps with a notification. I must have caught a signal somehow. There are 17 missed calls and 23 text messages, all from last night and this morning. My heart lurches, thinking maybe my family realized their mistake. Maybe they're worried about me. Maybe. But when I read the messages, my bubble of happiness deflates a little. Most of them are from Jessica. "Where did you go last night? Mom said you stopped by but left. David thinks you're being dramatic. Can you please just call me back so I know you're not dead in a ditch somewhere?" There are a few from Mom. "Olivia, please call. We need to talk. This is ridiculous." Nothing from Dad. And then I see the most recent message, sent 20 minutes ago from Jessica. "I'm driving around Cleveland looking for you. Marcus said you never came back to his apartment? Where the hell are you? I stare at the phone for a long moment. 6 months ago? Even 6 hours ago? These messages would have sent me running back to them, apologizing for causing worry, grateful for any sign that they cared about me. But sitting here in my own kitchen, in my own house, surrounded by evidence of my grandfather's love and faith in me, I see these messages for what they really are. They're not worried about me. They're annoyed, inconvenienced. Jessica is probably only looking for me because Mom asked her to. And Mom is probably only asking because she's worried about what the neighbors will think if word gets out that they threw their daughter away on Christmas Eve. I turn the phone off and set it aside. I have more important things to do today than manage their feelings about my absence. I finish my coffee and get dressed, then spend the morning exploring the property. In daylight, the house is even more charming than I thought. It's a classic 1940s farmhouse. White clapboard siding with green shutters, a wraparound porch on 2 sides, and gingerbread trim under the eaves. It needs paint and some minor repairs, but the bones are solid, just like Grandpa Henry said. The barn is bigger than it looked from the house, 2 stories, with a hayloft and stalls that must have once housed horses or cattle. Now it's filled with tools, lawn equipment, and supplies. I find a riding mower, a snowblower, hand tools, bags of fertilizer, even lumber stacked neatly along one wall. There's also an old pickup truck under a tarp, a red Ford from the 1980s that looks like it's been well maintained. I check the keys my grandfather left me, and sure enough, one of them starts the truck. The engine turns over on the 3rd try, rumbling to life with a satisfying growl. The fuel gauge shows half a tank. My grandfather really did think of everything. I spend the afternoon driving around the area, getting my bearings. Millfield is a tiny town, maybe 800 people, with a main street that has a post office, a general store, a diner, and not much else. But the people I meet are friendly in a way I'd forgotten was possible. The woman at the general store, Helen, asks if I'm visiting for the holidays. When I tell her I've just inherited Henry Collins' place on Willow Creek Lane, her face lights up. "Oh, you're Olivia. Henry talked about you all the time. Said you were the only one in the family with any sense." She leans across the counter conspiratorially. "He's been fixing up that place for years, you know. Always said it was for someone special. I'm so glad it's you." At the diner, the owner, a man named Pete who looks like he's in his 60s, refuses to let me pay for my lunch when he finds out who I am. "Your grandfather helped my son get into college," he says simply. "Wrote him a recommendation letter, helped him with his application. That boy's a doctor now in Columbus, and it's partly thanks to Henry Collins. Least I can do is buy his granddaughter a sandwich." I'm starting to realize that my grandfather was more than just the quiet, fading man I visited in the nursing home. He was a pillar of this community, someone people respected and cared about, and now I'm his legacy. On the drive back to the house, I stop at the law office in Cedar Falls to meet Robert Martinez. He's a kind man in his 50s who clearly respected my grandfather a great deal. He walks me through all the paperwork. The house is indeed mine, free and clear, along with the 5 acres it sits on. There's also a bank account with $47,000 in it, set up specifically to help me get established. "Your grandfather was very specific about how he wanted this handled," Martinez explains. "He said you might need time to figure things out, to make the place your own. This money should cover basic expenses and improvements for at least 2 years, maybe longer if you're careful." He also hands me another envelope. "He asked me to give you this after you'd seen the house." Inside is another letter from Grandpa Henry, shorter this time but just as heartfelt. "Olivia, if you're reading this, then you've decided to stay, at least for now. I'm proud of you. I know this must seem overwhelming, but I want you to know that you're not alone. The people in Millfield are good folks. They'll help you if you need it, and they'll respect your independence if that's what you prefer. I've left instructions with Bob Martinez about setting up accounts at the local businesses. The house is yours to do with as you please. Fix it up, tear it down, and start over. Whatever makes you happy. The only thing I ask is that you don't sell it just because you're scared or overwhelmed. Give it a real chance first. There's one more thing I need to tell you. Your grandmother's sister May lives about 10 miles from you, on the other side of Cedar Falls. She's 84 now, and sharp as a tack. I never told her about you coming because I wasn't sure you'd want to stay, but she'd love to meet you if you're interested. She has stories about our family that you've never heard, and she makes the best apple pie in 3 counties. Be brave, sweetheart. You deserve all the good things this life has to offer. Love always, Grandpa Henry. By the time I get back to the house, it's late afternoon and the sun is starting to set. I've been gone most of the day, but walking back through the front door feels like coming home after a long trip. Everything is exactly as I left it, because it's mine and mine alone. I turn my phone back on to check the time, and immediately regret it. 37 more missed calls and 42 text messages. The tone of the messages has shifted from annoyed to angry to worried to angry again. The most recent one, from Jessica, makes my blood boil. Olivia, this is getting ridiculous. You're scaring Mom and Dad, and frankly, you're embarrassing the family. Whatever point you think you're making, you've made it. Now come home and apologize so we can move on. Embarrassing the family. That's what my disappearance is to them. An embarrassment, not a tragedy. They're not worried about my safety or my well-being. They're worried about their reputation. And she wants me to come home and apologize. Apologize for what? For existing. For wanting to be treated like a member of my own family. I'm about to turn the phone off again when it rings. Jessica's name appears on the screen. Against my better judgment, I answer. Olivia, oh my God, where have you been? We've been looking everywhere for you. I've been exactly where I need to be, I say calmly. What does that even mean? Look, I know you're upset about Christmas Eve, but you have to understand. I understand perfectly, I interrupt. I understand that Mom told me there's no home for me there anymore. I understand that you've all made it clear that I'm an inconvenience, a burden, someone to be hidden away when company comes. That's not, Olivia, you're being dramatic. Mom was just stressed, and with the kids there. Jessica, stop. My voice is steadier than I expected it to be. Just stop. I'm not being dramatic. I'm finally being realistic. Where are you? She asks, her tone shifting from placating to demanding. I'm coming to get you. No, you're not, because I'm not telling you where I am, and I'm not coming back. There's a long pause. Then, what do you mean, not coming back? Don't be ridiculous. Where are you going to live? How are you going to survive? You barely make enough money to what? To matter. To deserve respect. To have a place at my own family's Christmas table. Olivia, please. Your family. We love you. And there it is. The word that used to mean everything to me, now twisted into a weapon. They love me, but there's no room for me. They love me, but I'm an embarrassment. They love me, but only when it's convenient. If this is love, I say quietly, then I'd rather be alone. I hang up before she can respond and immediately turn the phone off. My hands are shaking, but not from fear or sadness this time. From anger. From righteous, justified anger at people who should have protected me, but chose to discard me instead. I walk to the kitchen window and look out at the snow-covered yard, at the barn where my grandfather stored tools and dreams, at the fruit trees that will bloom again in spring. This place represents everything they took from me. Stability, belonging, the right to exist without apology. But it's more than that. It represents something they never gave me in the first place. Unconditional love. My grandfather's love didn't come with conditions or requirements. It didn't depend on my success or failure, my usefulness or inconvenience. It just was, steady and constant as the sunrise. That night, I make myself dinner in my own kitchen. Eggs scrambled in a pan I found in the cellar trunk. Toast made with bread I bought at Helen's store. Coffee that tastes better than anything I've had in months. I eat at the breakfast nook, watching the last light fade from the sky and the first stars appear. Tomorrow, I'll start making this place truly mine. I'll buy furniture, maybe paint some walls, definitely fix that loose board on the front porch. I'll explore more of the property, maybe visit May if I feel ready for it. I'll start building the life my grandfather believed I deserved. But tonight, I just want to sit here in the quiet and appreciate what I've been given. Not just a house, but a foundation. Not just land, but roots. Not just shelter, but home. Outside, snow begins to fall again. But this time I watch it with joy instead of dread. Let it snow. Let it pile up against the windows and cover the world in white. I have nowhere else I need to be. For the first time in my adult life, I'm exactly where I belong. 2 weeks later, I'm standing in the paint aisle at the hardware store in Cedar Falls, debating between Sunshine Yellow and Buttercream Dream for the kitchen walls, when I hear a voice behind me. Wait, Henry always said that kitchen needed brightening up. I turn around to see an elderly woman with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun, wearing a wool coat that probably cost more than my car, but somehow doesn't look pretentious on her. Her eyes are bright blue and remarkably familiar. They're my grandmother's eyes, which I remember from old photographs. You must be May, I say, and her face breaks into a smile that transforms her entire appearance. And you must be Olivia. You look just like your grandmother did at your age. I was wondering when you'd make it over to introduce yourself. I feel my cheeks flush. I've been meaning to call, but I've been so busy getting settled, and I wasn't sure. She waves away my explanation. Nonsense. You needed time to find your footing. Henry always said you were the thoughtful type. She peers at the paint samples in my hands. Go with the buttercream. It'll look beautiful with those mint cabinets, and it won't show dirt as much as the pure yellow. We end up spending the entire afternoon together. May insists on buying my paint, and then follows me back to the house in her pristine 1995 Buick. She walks through every room, exclaiming over changes and sharing memories I never knew existed. This was the parlor when Henry and your grandmother first looked at the place, she says in what I've been using as a living room. The previous owners were an older couple who'd raised 8 children here. Can you imagine? 8 children in this little house? She shows me scratches on the kitchen doorframe that mark the heights of those long-ago children, points out where a wall was removed to make the kitchen bigger, explains why there's a bell by the back door, for calling the men in from the fields for supper. But it's when she starts talking about my grandparents' marriage that I really start to understand why my grandfather saved this place. They went through a rough patch in the early 70s, May tells me, as we sit at the kitchen table with cups of tea. Henry had lost his job at the plant, and money was tight. Your grandmother was working 2 jobs, and they hardly saw each other. They started fighting about everything. Money, housework, whether to have more children after your mother was born. She pauses, stirring her tea thoughtfully. Henry was proud, maybe too proud. He couldn't stand the idea of your grandmother carrying the whole financial burden, so he started looking for work further and further away. Eventually, he found a job in Columbus that would pay well, but require him to be gone most of the week. I think about my grandfather as I knew him. Gentle, quiet, devoted to my grandmother until the day she died. It's hard to imagine him angry or frustrated or considering leaving. That's when he bought this place, May continues. He told your grandmother he'd found them a fresh start, somewhere they could raise your mother away from the stress and financial pressure of the city. But really, I think he was preparing an escape route, somewhere to go if things got too bad. But they never moved here. No. Your grandmother put her foot down, said she wasn't running away from their problems, and if he wanted to save their marriage, he needed to stay and fight for it, not disappear to some farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. May chuckles. She could be fierce when she needed to be, your grandmother. So what happened? Henry turned down the job in Columbus and found work at a smaller plant closer to home. They went to counseling, which was quite scandalous in those days, I can tell you. And slowly, they rebuilt what they had, made it stronger. May reaches across the table and pats my hand. But Henry never sold this place. He'd come out here sometimes on weekends, fixing things up, keeping it ready, just in case, he'd say. I think after a while it became less about having an escape route, and more about having a project, something that was entirely his. I think about the notebook full of maintenance records, the careful preparation, the way everything in the house was ready for me. He was getting it ready for me. Oh, honey, he's been getting it ready for you for at least 10 years. Ever since you started visiting him regularly at the nursing home, he'd talk about you constantly. How proud he was of your independence, how worried he was about the way your parents treated you, how he wanted to make sure you'd have options. The validation hits me like a physical force. Someone saw, someone understood, someone cared enough to spend a decade preparing a safe place for me to land. As he used to say, that girl's got too much spirit to let them break her, but she needs somewhere soft to fall when she finally stands up for herself. I have to excuse myself to the bathroom so May won't see me cry. When I return, she's examining the old photographs I found in the cellar trunk. Oh, look at this one, she says, holding up a picture of my grandparents at what looks like a church picnic. They're both laughing at something off camera, their faces young and full of joy. This must be from right after they worked things out. You can see it in their faces. They remembered why they fell in love. We spend the rest of the afternoon going through the albums. May fills in the stories behind the pictures, tells me about relatives I never knew existed, shares family recipes and traditions that were never passed down to me. By the time she leaves, I feel connected to my heritage in a way I never have before. You call me if you need anything, she says, as she's putting on her coat. And don't be a stranger. I make Sunday dinner for anyone who wants to join me. Just me, and usually a few neighbors. You'd always be welcome. After she leaves, I sit in the kitchen as darkness falls outside. The house feels different now, not just like a refuge I stumbled into, but like a place with history, with stories, with roots that go deeper than my grandfather's love for me. That night, I decide it's time to face the messages on my phone. I've been ignoring it for 2 weeks, turning it on only when I need to call someone for work or household business, but I can't avoid the outside world forever. There are 127 missed calls and 89 text messages waiting for me. The early messages from my family follow the same pattern as before: anger, worry, guilt, demands that I come home and stop this nonsense. But as the days went on, the tone changed. From Mom, 5 days ago: Olivia, I'm sorry about Christmas Eve. I was stressed and said things I didn't mean. Please call me. From Jessica, 3 days ago: I told David what happened, and he thinks Mom was out of line. Maybe we can all sit down and talk when you're ready. From Dad, yesterday: your mother's been crying for days. Whatever point you're trying to make, you've made it. Please just call so we know you're safe. The most recent message is from this morning, from Mom: I went to your work today to check on you. Marcus told me you requested to work remotely indefinitely and gave an address in Millfield. I don't understand what's happening, but if you need space, I'll respect that. I just need to know you're okay. I stare at that last message for a long time. It's the first communication from any of them that doesn't include a demand or an ultimatum. The first one that seems to acknowledge that maybe, possibly, I might have legitimate reasons for staying away, but it's too little, too late. I draft and delete a dozen responses before settling on something simple: I'm safe and I'm happy. I need time to figure out what comes next. I'll contact you when I'm ready. I send it to all 3 of them, then turn the phone off again. The next few weeks pass in a blur of activity. I paint the kitchen walls the buttercream color May recommended, and she's right. It's perfect with the mint cabinets. I buy furniture from a secondhand store in Cedar Falls: a real bed for the upstairs bedroom, a comfortable chair for the living room, a small dining table to replace the rickety one that came with the house. I start attending May's Sunday dinners and meet the neighbors: Bob and Carol Williams, who run the farm next to mine; Jim Morrison from the Ford dealership, who did indeed owe my grandfather a favor and sells me a newer used truck at cost; Helen from the general store, who brings me vegetables from her greenhouse and refuses to let me pay for them. These people embrace me in a way my own family never did. They don't ask invasive questions about my past or demand explanations for my choices. They simply accept that I'm Henry Collins, granddaughter, and that's enough for them. At work, my supervisor is accommodating about my remote arrangement. The nature of my job, helping people with disabilities find employment, translates well to phone and video calls. I drive into Cleveland twice a week for in-person meetings, but the rest of the time I work from my kitchen table, looking out at my snow-covered yard and feeling more productive and creative than I have in years. But the real transformation happens gradually. In small moments, I almost don't notice at first. One morning in late January, I wake up and realize I haven't thought about my family's approval in 3 days. I've been making decisions: what to plant in the garden this spring, whether to refinish the hardwood floors, how to arrange the living room furniture, based entirely on what I want, what makes me happy, what feels right for my life. Another day, I'm at the diner having lunch with May and realize I'm laughing, really laughing, at something Pete said about his cat. When was the last time I laughed like that? When was the last time I felt light enough for genuine joy? The biggest moment comes on a Saturday in early February. I'm in the barn, organizing tools and planning spring projects, when I hear a car pull into the driveway. Through the barn window, I see a familiar blue sedan, Jessica's BMW. My first instinct is panic. They found me. They're here to drag me back, to guilt me into returning, to make me feel small and selfish and wrong again. But then I take a deep breath and look around the barn, at the tools my grandfather left me, at the truck I bought with my own money, at the projects I'm planning for my own land. This is my place. These are my choices. They can't make me leave. I walk out of the barn to meet them. Jessica gets out of the driver's side, looking around with obvious surprise at the well-maintained property. Mom emerges from the passenger side, her expression unreadable. "So this is where you've been hiding," Jessica says, but there's no malice in it. She sounds almost impressed. "I haven't been hiding," I reply calmly. "I've been living." Mom steps forward hesitantly. "Olivia, we need to talk." "No, we don't. But if you want to talk, we can do it on my terms, in my space." I lead them to the front porch, and gesture to the chairs I bought at a yard sale last weekend. Have a seat. For the first time in my adult life, I'm the one setting the rules for a family interaction. I'm the one with the home field advantage. It's terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. Mom looks around the porch, taking in the hanging plants I started from cuttings May gave me, the wind chimes that sing in the breeze, the view of the rolling hills beyond the property line. This is beautiful, honey. It's mine, I say simply. Jessica pulls out her phone and starts scrolling through something. I looked up the property records, she says without preamble. The house and land are worth about $180,000. That's a nice inheritance. I feel the familiar stab of annoyance at her assumption that I'm only valuable in terms of dollars and cents, but I push it down. Her worldview is her problem, not mine. It's not about the money, I say. Then what is it about? Mom asks. And for the first time in years, she sounds like she genuinely wants to know the answer. I look out at my land, at the barn where I store my tools, at the garden plot where I'll plant vegetables this spring. How do I explain to them what this place has given me? How do I make them understand that their rejection, as painful as it was, turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me? It's about belonging, I say finally. It's about having a place where no one can tell me I'm temporary, where no one can move my things to storage when someone more important needs the space, where no one can make me sleep in a basement and tell me I should be grateful for it. Mom flinches as if I've slapped her. Olivia, you have to understand. No, I don't. I don't have to understand anything anymore. I don't have to make excuses for people who should have protected me, but chose to discard me instead. The words hang in the cold February air. Jessica stares at her phone. Mom stares at her hands. We made mistakes, Mom says quietly. After Jessica married David, we got caught up in the excitement of it all. The money, the lifestyle, the grandchildren. We lost sight of what really mattered. You lost sight of me, I correct. Yes, we lost sight of you. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It's the apology I've been waiting for my entire adult life, but sitting here on my own porch, surrounded by evidence of the life I've built without them, I realize something surprising. I don't need it anymore. Their approval, their understanding, their love, these things that once felt essential to my survival, they're not. I've learned to provide these things for myself. I've found people who value me without conditions, who see my worth without having to be convinced of it. I appreciate that, I say, but an apology doesn't undo 3 years of being treated like I was disposable. So what do you want from us? Jessica asks, looking up from her phone finally. What would it take for you to forgive us? I consider this. What do I want from them? I want you to understand that this isn't temporary, I say. This isn't me having a tantrum or trying to punish you. This is my life now. I have a home, a community, work that matters to me, plans for the future. I'm not the same person who begged you to let me sleep in your basement. But you're still our family, Mom says, tears in her eyes. Am I? Because for the past 3 years, you've made it pretty clear that Jessica and her family are your priorities, and I'm just someone to be managed around the edges. That's not... Jessica starts, then stops. Okay, maybe it is. Maybe we did get caught up in our own lives and forget that you needed support too. It's more self-awareness than I expected from her. The thing is, I continue, I don't need your support anymore. I've learned to support myself. I've learned that I'm stronger than any of us realized, including me. We sit in silence for a few minutes, watching the wind blow snow across the yard. Finally, Mom speaks. Can we have a relationship with you? Different from before, but still a relationship. I think about this. Do I want a relationship with them? Part of me, the part that's been trying to win their love for 3 decades, wants to say yes immediately. But the part of me that's learned to trust my own judgment says to be careful. Maybe, I say finally, but it would have to be on equal terms. No more treating me like the failure of the family. No more comparisons. No more making me feel like I have to earn my place at the table. We can do that, Mom says quickly. And no more expecting me to center my life around your convenience. I live here now. This is my home. If you want to see me, you come here. If you want to be part of my life, you participate in the life I've built, not the life you think I should have. Jessica and Mom exchange a look. This is clearly not what they expected when they decided to drive out here. Okay, Jessica says slowly. Okay, we can try that. I'm not sure I believe them. Changing patterns that have been in place for years is difficult. and I'm not convinced they really understand how deeply their rejection affected me. But I'm not the same person who left Cleveland on Christmas Eve, desperate and broken. I'm stronger now, more secure. If they can't respect the boundaries I'm setting, I'll survive just fine without them. We talk for another hour, carefully navigating topics that used to be minefields. They tell me about the family drama I missed. Apparently Jessica and David did have a major fight after Christmas, triggered by David's criticism of how they treated me. Mom admits that she's been going to therapy to deal with the guilt of what happened on Christmas Eve. Jessica talks about her kids and asks if they can visit the farm sometime. When they get ready to leave, Mom hugs me for the first time in months. "I'm proud of you," she whispers. I should have said that more often. After they drive away, I sit on the porch until the sun sets, thinking about forgiveness and family and the difference between the two. I'm not ready to forgive them yet. Forgiveness is a process, not a decision, and they have a lot of work to do to rebuild my trust. But for the first time since Christmas Eve, I can imagine a future where we might have a healthy relationship. Not the codependent, guilt-ridden dynamic we had before, but something new, something equal. That night, I call May and tell her about the visit. She listens without judgment, then gives me the advice my own mother should have given me years ago. You don't owe them anything, honey. Not your forgiveness, not your presence, not your emotional labor. If they want a relationship with you, they need to earn it. And if they can't or won't do the work, that's their loss, not yours. How do I know if I'm being too hard on them? You'll know because you'll feel peace about your decision, whatever it is. Right now, you sound like someone who's finally learned her own worth. Don't let anyone convince you to forget that lesson, not even family. After I hang up, I make myself dinner and eat it at my table, in my kitchen, looking out at my land. Outside, snow is falling again, but it doesn't look threatening anymore. It looks like possibility, covering the old growth so new things can take root in the spring. I think about my grandfather, about the faith he had in my strength before I even knew I had any. He was right about so many things, that I deserved better, that I was capable of more, that someday I would need a soft place to fall when I finally stood up for myself. But I think he might have been wrong about one thing. I didn't need a soft place to fall. I needed solid ground to stand on, and that's exactly what he gave me. It's been 6 months since that snowy Christmas Eve when I drove away from everything I thought I knew about family and home. Now it's late June, and I'm sitting on my front porch at sunrise, coffee in hand, watching the mist rise from the creek that runs along the back of my property. The vegetable garden I planted in March is thriving, tomatoes heavy on the vine, corn stalks reaching toward the sky, beans climbing the trellises I built with lumber from Grandpa Henry's barn. This morning feels different, though, special. Today marks exactly 1 year since I started working remotely, which means today I officially qualify for my company's permanent remote work program. No more twice-weekly drives to Cleveland. No more tethering my life to a city that never felt like home. I am officially, completely, permanently rooted here in Millfield. The irony isn't lost on me. A year ago, I was desperate for any family to claim me. Now I have a family I chose, and they chose me back. May pulls into my driveway at exactly 7:30, just like she has every Wednesday for the past 4 months. We've started a tradition of morning walks around the property before the day gets too hot, followed by breakfast and what she calls old lady gossip, but what I've come to recognize as the heartbeat of a small community who needs help, who has good news to share, who might be struggling. A morning sunshine, she calls as she gets out of her Buick. At 84, she moves with more energy than I had at 24. Ready for our constitutional? We walk the perimeter of my 5 acres, May pointing out changes since last week. The apple trees are heavy with fruit that will be ready in August. The wildflower meadow I planted along the back fence is attracting more butterflies every day. The old fence line needs some attention before winter. You know, she says as we pause by the creek. Henry would be so proud of what you've done with this place. It was pretty when he maintained it, but it's beautiful now that someone's actually living in it. I look back toward the house, trying to see it through his eyes. The white clapboard siding gleams with fresh paint. The wraparound porch is decorated with hanging baskets of flowers and comfortable furniture arranged for both solitude and gathering. The barn has been converted into a workshop on the ground floor and a studio apartment upstairs, a project I completed last month with help from Bob Williams and his sons. Why did you build the apartment? May asks, following my gaze. Planning on getting a roommate. I haven't told anyone about the apartment's intended purpose, partly because I wasn't sure it would work out. and partly because I wanted to surprise them. But the paperwork was finalized yesterday, and I can't contain my excitement any longer. Not a roommate exactly, I say. More like a purpose. May raises an eyebrow, waiting. You know how I've been working with people with disabilities to help them find employment. Of course, it's good work. Well, I've been thinking about taking it a step further. What if I could offer them not just job placement, but a place to live while they transition to independence? Somewhere safe and supportive, where they can learn life skills and save money. May stops walking and turns to face me fully. You want to turn your property into a halfway house. Not exactly a halfway house. More like a stepping stone. The apartment can house 2 people comfortably. They'd pay a small amount of rent, help with property maintenance, and work with me on developing independent living skills. When they're ready, usually after 6 months to a year, they move on to their own place. I've been working on this idea for months, navigating bureaucracy and regulations, getting certified as a transitional housing provider. It's been frustrating and exhausting, but also the most meaningful work I've ever done. The first residents move in next week, I continue. Sarah, who's 23 and has autism, and Marcus, different Marcus from my old co-worker, who's 28 and recovering from a traumatic brain injury. They both have jobs lined up in Cedar Falls, but they need somewhere affordable to live while they get established. May's face breaks into a huge smile. Olivia Carter, you are full of surprises. This is wonderful. Henry always said this place was meant to be a sanctuary for people who needed a fresh start. We finish our walk and settle on the porch for breakfast. Fresh eggs from my chickens, tomatoes from the garden, toast made from bread I learned to bake during the long winter evenings. May tells me about her week. Her great-nephew is getting married in August. The church is organizing a summer festival. Helen from the general store is finally going to hire help so she can take a real vacation. This is what family sounds like, I realize. Not drama and competition and conditional love, but genuine interest in each other's lives, shared celebrations, mutual support. After May leaves, I spend the morning making final preparations for Sarah and Marcus's arrival. Fresh linens on the beds, groceries stocked in the apartment's small kitchen, welcome packets with information about local services and transportation options. I'm arranging flowers from my garden in a vase for their table when I hear another car in the driveway. Through the window, I see Jessica's BMW, but this time she's not alone. My 8-year-old nephew Connor jumps out of the passenger seat and runs toward the house, followed more sedately by Jessica and my 4-year-old niece Emma. "Aunt Livy!" Connor shouts, using the nickname he invented for me during their first visit in March. "Can we see the chickens?" This is our 3rd visit since the February confrontation, and each one has been easier than the last. Jessica seems to genuinely understand that our relationship needed to change, and she's been making an effort to treat me as an equal rather than a burden or a project. "Of course," I say, giving Connor a hug. "But first, help me carry Emma. Those chicken wire can be tricky for little legs." Jessica follows us to the chicken coop, carrying a cooler. "I brought that pasta salad you liked last time, and some of those cookies Emma helped me make. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. Besides, it gives me an excuse to steal some of your tomatoes. David's been bragging to his golf buddies about the vegetables his sister-in-law grows." His sister-in-law. Not Jessica's sister who lives on that farm, but his sister-in-law. It's a small thing, but it represents a shift in how they see me, not as an embarrassment to be hidden, but as someone worth acknowledging. We spend the afternoon in easy companionship. Connor helps me weed the garden and collect eggs, chattering about school and soccer and his plans to become a farmer when he grows up. Emma naps in the porch swing while Jessica and I sit in the shade, talking about everything and nothing. "A mom wants to know if she can come for your birthday next month," Jessica says, as we watch Connor chase butterflies in the wildflower meadow. My birthday. I'd actually forgotten it was coming up. July 15th, when I'll turn 30. Last year, I spent it alone in my parents' basement, pretending to be happy with a grocery store cupcake and a card from my coworkers. "She can come," I say. "But just her. I'm not ready for Dad yet." Jessica nods. "This is another boundary I've had to establish. Dad hasn't made the same effort Mom has to understand what went wrong and how to fix it. His attempts at reconciliation have focused more on me, forgiving and forgetting, than on him taking responsibility for his part in the estrangement. She'll be thrilled. She's been worried you don't want her in your life at all. I'm not sure what I want yet, I admit. It's hard to trust that the changes are real and not just temporary guilt. I understand. For what it's worth, I think they are real. Mom's been seeing that therapist for 6 months now, and she talks about you differently. Less like you're a problem to be solved and more like you're a person she misses. We sit in comfortable silence, watching the kids play. This is what I wanted all along. Not to be the center of attention, but to be included. Not to be managed or fixed or improved, but to be accepted as I am. Can I ask you something? Jessica says eventually. Sure. Are you happy? Really, truly happy? Or are you just okay? It's a more perceptive question than I expected from her. 6 months ago, she would have asked if I was ready to come home or when I was going to get my life back on track. Now she's asking about my actual well-being. I look around at my property, the house I've made beautiful, the garden that feeds me, the barn where I'm building a business that matters. I think about May's weekly visits, Sunday dinners with neighbors who've become friends, the satisfaction of work that helps people build better lives. I think about Sarah and Marcus, who will arrive tomorrow to start their own fresh chapters. I'm happy, I say, and realize I mean it completely. For the first time in my adult life, I'm genuinely, deeply happy. Jessica smiles. Good. That's what Henry wanted for you, I think. What we all should have wanted. That evening, after Jessica and the kids leave, I sit on the porch with a glass of wine and my phone, scrolling through the pictures Connor took during their visit. There's one of me laughing at something Emma said, my face relaxed and genuinely joyful. Another of all of us in the garden, covered in dirt and grinning. These are the kinds of pictures I always wanted to be in. Not posed or forced, but natural moments of connection. I'm about to put the phone away when it buzzes with a text from an unknown number. My heart lurches, thinking it might be Dad trying to reach me through a different phone. But when I open it, I see, "Hi, Olivia. This is Sarah. Marcus and I are so excited to move in tomorrow. Thank you again for this opportunity. We promise to take good care of your beautiful property. Sarah, your new tenant." I smile and text back, "Looking forward to meeting you both in person. Drive safely tomorrow. This is why I'm here. This is why my grandfather saved this place. Why he had faith I would know what to do with it. Not just so I would have somewhere to hide from a family that couldn't love me properly, but so I could build something meaningful. So I could take the safety and security he gave me and pass it forward to others who need it." The next morning, I wake before dawn, too excited to sleep. By the time Sarah and Marcus arrive in a borrowed pickup truck loaded with their belongings, I've been up for hours, making sure everything is perfect. Sarah is petite and energetic, with bright pink streaks in her dark hair and a smile that lights up her entire face. Marcus is tall and quiet, moving carefully but with determination. They're both nervous and excited, asking questions about everything: where to park, how the washer works, whether it's okay to plant herbs in the pots on the apartment porch. "This place is amazing," Sarah says as I show them around the property. "I can't believe we get to live here." "You're not just living here," I tell them. "You're part of the community now. May will probably stop by tomorrow to introduce herself and bring you vegetables whether you want them or not. Pete at the diner gives discounts to anyone who lives on this road. And if you need anything, rides to work, help with paperwork, someone to talk to, just knock on my door." As the day goes on, I watch them settle in, claiming space, making plans. Sarah immediately starts reorganizing the kitchen cupboards to suit her preferences. Marcus sets up a small desk by the window where he can work on the computer skills classes he's taking online. They're not just grateful recipients of charity, they're people building lives, taking control of their circumstances, moving toward independence. That evening, the three of us sit on the apartment's small porch, eating pizza and watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and gold. Sarah tells me about her job at the library in Cedar Falls, how excited she is to help children discover books they'll love. Marcus shares his goal of eventually starting his own small business, maybe something involving the woodworking skills he's been relearning. "What about you?" Sarah asks. "What's your big dream for this place?" I think about this. 6 months ago, my biggest dream was simply to survive, to find somewhere I belonged. Now I have that, but I can see so much more potential. I want to expand, I say finally. Maybe convert part of the barn into another apartment. Maybe partner with other organizations to help more people. I want this to be a place where people can catch their breath, figure out their next steps, and know they're not alone. Like a family, Marcus says quietly. Exactly like a family. The kind of family that supports you as you grow, instead of trying to keep you small. Later that night, After Sarah and Marcus have settled into their new home, I take one last walk around the property. The summer air is warm and sweet with the scent of honeysuckle. Fireflies blink in the tall grass, and somewhere in the distance, an owl calls. I end up at my grandfather's favorite spot, a bench he built under the big oak tree, positioned to look out over the creek and the rolling hills beyond. There's a small plaque on the bench that I had made in his memory, for Henry Collins, who believed in second chances and soft places to fall. "Thank you, Grandpa," I whisper to the night air, "not just for the house and the money and the chance to start over. Thank you for seeing who I could become, even when I couldn't see it myself." I think about that broken woman who drove away from Cleveland 9 months ago, desperate and alone and convinced she wasn't worth loving. She had no idea that rejection would turn into liberation, that losing everything would teach her how strong she really was, that the keys in her pocket would unlock not just a house, but an entirely new life. I think about my family, the one I was born into and the one I've chosen, the relationships that needed to end, and the ones that are slowly, carefully being rebuilt, the boundaries I've learned to set, and the love I've learned to accept. Most of all, I think about home, not just as a place with 4 walls and a roof, but as a feeling, the security that comes from knowing you belong somewhere, that you matter to people, that your presence makes the world a little better. I have that now. I am that now. As I walk back toward the house, I can see lights in the apartment windows, Sarah and Marcus starting their new chapters, safe and supported and full of possibilities. In the main house, my own lights are on, welcoming me back to rooms I've filled with love and purpose and hope. Tomorrow, May will come for our Wednesday walk. Pete will wave when I drive past the diner. Helen will ask how the new tenants are settling in. Sarah will probably have 17 new ideas for improving the apartment, and Marcus will quietly help me with whatever project I'm working on. This is what happiness looks like. Not perfect, not without challenges, but real and solid and earned. I am Olivia Carter. I am 29 years old. I live on a farm in Millfield, Ohio, in a house my grandfather saved for me, with people who choose to be part of my life because they value who I am, not what I can do for them. I am home, and I am exactly where I belong.